Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webcast. My name is Christine Dorsey Davis. I'm the Executive Director of the Ohio chapter of the American Planning Association, and I am Chair of APA's New Urbanism Division, and I'm your webcast moderator. Today's Friday, September 20th. We will be hearing the presentation, Raising Your Profile to Accelerate Your Career. For technical help during today's webcast, you can type your questions in the questions box located in your webinar toolbar. And for your content questions related to the presentation, you can type those again in the questions box located in your webinar toolbar. We will answer those at the end of the presentation during the Q&A. On your screen is a list of our sponsoring chapters and divisions for 2019. Thanks to all of those participating sponsors for making these webcasts possible and free to their members. In particular, today we are thankful for the Women in Planning Division for hosting today's session. So thanks to you, and you can learn more about them by heading over to planning.org/divisions, and I know we'll hear a little bit more about them at the very end of today's session, so watch for that. Coming up on your screen is a list of our upcoming webcasts through the end of the year. I think we might have one more that we're going to be able to squeeze in there towards the end of December, but this is pretty much the rest of our schedule for the rest of the year, and believe it or not, we're already starting to schedule for 2020. So make sure you check back on our webcast webpage, ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast, so that you can register for some of these. We don't have all the information yet, but we want you to save the date so that you can join us. To log your credits for attending today's session, just head over to planning.org and log into your My APA account. And there you can either search via today's title or the event number, which is there on your screen. This webcast has been approved for 1.5 CM credits for live viewing only. We do have some recorded webcasts that are available for distance education, one ethics, one law, each worth 1.5 credits. So you can check those out at ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast. They'll be good through the 31st of December, and then we'll have 2 new ones starting on January 1. But head on over there so that you can get the details and the links so that you can view those on-demand sessions at your leisure. Like us on Facebook, Planning Webcast Series, to receive up-to-date information and any changes on our upcoming sessions. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. Head over to YouTube and search Planning Webcast in the search bar and we'll pop up, along with our over 300 sessions that are recorded and available for you to peruse. And we have over 2,000 subscribers to our channel. So be one of those and join us, and you'll get bings and dings and up-to-date information when we're posting our sessions, which, by the way, this webcast will also be recorded and posted to our channel. And we will have a PDF copy of this presentation available at the conclusion of the session on our webcast webpage. Again, ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast. Okay, I think that's it for my housekeeping items. I am going to turn it over to Caitlin Wentz of the Women in Planning Division to kick things off. So Caitlin, it's all you, and Maya, I just sent the controls over to you.
All right.
Perfect.
Hi,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you, Christine. So thank you all for logging into our webinar this afternoon or this morning for all of our West Coast friends. Today we have a very exciting presentation all about building your professional brand and getting comfortable with self-promotion. Just a reminder, like Christine said, we are approved for 1.5 CM credits, so make sure that you log everything today. My name is Caitlin Wentz. I'm the Senior Planner for Cape May County Planning Department. I have a bachelor's degree in environmental studies from Ramapo College and a master's in geography from Westchester. I have 5 years planning experience in the public sector, specializing in development review and long-range planning. I volunteer with the executive board of the Women in Planning Division as the director of programs. And today, our very esteemed speaker is Maya Scharphie. She is a creative agent of change, a doer, a big picture thinker. She founded Build Yourself to help women in the design, planning, and the built environment move past the obstacles that hold them back in their businesses and careers, and to make their industries and workplaces a better place for women's talents. Named a cheerleader with devil's horns by her students, Maya is skilled at helping ambitious and creative women see beyond limiting mindsets to envision and achieve more than they ever thought possible for themselves on their own terms. Maya is a trained facilitator who's run a research effort on women in social impact design for Harvard Business School. She's a founding member of the Equity Roundtable at the Boston of Architects, and was named one of the Impact Design Hub's Social Impact Design 40 Under 40. So before we jump into the presentation, we have just a few interactive polling questions for our attendees to answer. So Christine, if you want to jump to those.
Wonderful. Will do. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and launch our first poll question. This is the gender question, and you can answer here, or of course, as always, prefer not to answer is an option as well. So go ahead and type those into your screen. That sounds funny. And we'll just give it a few more moments here. Couple more seconds, just because I can see how many people have voted. So I'm just wait until we get a good number here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that poll, and then we'll view those, share those results. Ladies, can you, Caitlin and Maya, can you see the results?
Yes, we can.
Oh, wonderful. Great. Okay. So it looks like the majority of our listeners today are female. Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and launch our next poll. It's always kind of interesting to see who we have on the line and kind of folks we have here. Okay, the next one is up. We're just looking to find out how many years of professional experience you have. So go ahead and type your, or punch your answer in there. We'll give it a few more seconds. We do have one question. Are we talking experience in planning or just any professional experience?
Professional experience in planning.
Okay. Good question. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close us down here, and let's share these results. Wow, we have some seasoned veterans on the line. Over half of our participants here have over 15 years of professional planning experience. That's great. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that one and we're halfway through here. Okay, next question. Are you AICP or FAICP? Let us know. And if you could just type it, if you're neither, please punch in neither, just so I know how many folks have seen this and answered it. Thank you. And for any of those aspiring FAICPers that are knee deep in their application process, we salute you. Okay, I think we have a good number here. This is exciting. Over 85% of our listeners are AICP. Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and launch our last question here. This is a good question. I'm curious to see how folks respond to this one. And don't worry, I can't see who in particular is responding to any of these. So feel free to we go. Okay, I think we have a good number here. Going to go ahead and close, and let's share these results. These are interesting here. 53% feel awkward when they're networking, and 33% are confident, 22 shy, 11 indifferent. And I did, and I probably should have said this, you could have chosen more than one. In particular, I think when I'm networking, I'm probably all four of these. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and hide these results, and Maya,
Okay.
the screen is back to you now.
Okay, fantastic. All right. So, hi, everyone. So glad to be here. I want you to think to yourself about if there's someone who you know in your career, maybe in your community, who is just that person who seems like they're everywhere, right? This is the person who everyone says, their name comes up when they're not in the room, and they're the person who, they're always on the speakers list, or they're always presenting something, or, you finally meet them and you think, oh, wow, I've heard about you. This is the person. So we think that these people, there's just something magical about them, right? Like they've got that charisma, they've got that, they just happen to be well connected. They're in the right place at the right time. And if you're shy, and I want to confess that I have an inner shy girl inside me, or, for whatever reason, self-promotion or visibility has never been your thing. We're going to talk about that. You might be thinking, okay, well, that's for someone else and not for me. But it turns out that you can actually be that person for the things that matter to you, right? For the conversations you want to be in, for the opportunities that you want. You can be that person too, and you can actually do things to become that person, right? It's not a magical quality that happens to you. It's actually something that you can create for yourself. So what we're going to talk about is how can you do that? What strategies can you use? What can you do to do those things to become that person, to be known for the things that you want to be known for? So today, you are in the right place if you are working heads down in a career, in planning, creative career. I work a lot with women in design. I work a lot with women in engineering and women in planning. So if you're working in one of these problem-solving careers, but you feel like you've been kind of working heads down, like making stuff happen, and you're in the right place. You're in the right place if you feel like you need to start building your profile, right? Maybe people have said something to you about it, or you just have the sense you've kind of hit this moment where you've paid a lot of your dues and you're trying to figure out what comes next, but you don't really know where to start or what to do. You might be networking. You might be, going to networking events, and everyone says, hey, you should get on Twitter, so you're on Twitter, right? You might be getting out there, but you're not sure exactly why you're doing it. Maybe because you feel like you should do it, but you know that maybe there's this strategic approach that is not quite in place for you. Or maybe you're not doing those things, and part of why you're not doing those things is that the idea of promoting yourself, right, of self-promotion kind of feels a little bit icky. And, you have this image of maybe, like a salesperson, and, you imagine yourself wearing like a houndstooth plaid blazer and like giant shoulder pads. And you're thinking, maybe this isn't, I don't really know whether this visibility thing is right for me. Maybe I don't need it, right? Maybe I don't need it. Maybe it's inauthentic. It's not for people like me. So you're in the right place if any of these things about you feel like is true, or if the notion of going out with, that stack of business cards and swapping them doesn't feel right. You're in the right place, because today what we're going to do is I'm going to share with you why raising your profile is such an important investment of your time and why you need to start today. Then I'm going to share with you the top mistakes that I see women make. Men can make some of these mistakes as well, but we're going to go a little bit deeper into why women make certain key mistakes when it comes to raising their profile. And I'm also going to share a few of my strategies for authentic self-promotion that may not even feel like self-promotion, because they're fun, they're creative, they're collaborative, and they also work. They also are effective to getting you that visibility that will allow you to do the things that you want to do. But first, I'd love to just introduce myself and say hello. Thank you so much, Caitlin, for that lovely intro. So my name is Maya. I run Build Yourself, which is a career and business coaching and training company for women in design, planning, and built environment fields. I'm actually one of those women myself. So I have a master's in landscape architecture and a first degree in urban studies. I was always I grew up in Chicago, always very, very much an urbanist, have never owned a car, and it just was a kind of natural fit to become a landscape architect. And for many years, I actually ran my own design strategy firm focused on social impact design. So along the way, I've always been building and supporting communities of women. My mom is a social worker, and I think I kind of got the bug from her. When I have training as a women's empowerment facilitator, and when I started on my design career path, I found myself constantly bringing women together to learn together, a group of women, and I read together a book called Women Don't Ask about how women are less likely than men to negotiate. And I know negotiation and the pay gap is going to be one of the upcoming webinars in the series. And I was always, instigating with women who I knew, saying, your project is a lot better than you give it credit for. No, you do have to apply to that job, because I have imposter syndrome about how great your work is. And if you don't think your work is good enough, then where does that leave me? So women who I work with tell me that I'm that combination of a cheerleader and also a little bit of like a tough love, cheerleader with devil horns, because I can see the potential in women and I will push you to meet your potential, but I'll try to make it fun. A little fun fact about me is that I just moved to New York City. So I have lived in I've lived in Boston, San Francisco, Chicago, New York. My life is a little bit of a tour of high-priced cities, but I'm really enjoying getting to know Brooklyn and actually the planning and design community here in New York City. So visibility really, really matters. So for women who work in other people's companies, who work in planning agencies, who work in the private market, there's a study that showed, a Catalyst study, which is Catalyst is a great research firm that looks at the gender dynamics in the workplace. So there was a great Catalyst study that showed that of all the career advice we give to women about how they can move forward in their careers, right? How they can move through the ranks, title change, but also move into leadership and opportunity. So all the advice we give them, the only piece of advice that actually made a real difference in their actual advancement was to communicate their achievements, to make sure that people knew about what they had achieved, what kind of outcomes they were creating. Visibility in team members is really valuable to companies, right? Especially if you work in the private sector. Showing that your team members have expertise and reputations is basically what lands you a project, right? Your approach and then your credibility and your reputation. But it's also important if you're working in other sectors because, visibility creates trust, right? Visibility builds buy-in to the efforts that you're trying to make happen, right? Visibility matters. People need to know who you are in order to buy into what you're doing. And if you are in business for yourself, this matters all the more, because no matter how hard you work, no matter how great your work is, if the people who hire you don't know about your work and don't know who you are, they're just not going to find you. So visibility matters. And I don't know if you have seen this website. It is one of my favorites, but it's called Congratulations. You have an all-male panel. And anytime there's an all-male panel, you can share it and they'll upload it and they stick this little David Hasselhoff sticker on it. And I've even seen some very, very funny things like, panel consoles on reproductive rights, and it's man, 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 man. But it goes to show that visibility is extra, extra important for women because our society makes women invisible in a lot of ways. So there's research that shows that women get interrupted more by men than men do, but they also get interrupted more by women. So men and women are both interrupting women more than we interrupt men. Women's ideas get taken by men. So many of my students have had this happen. They say, I'll voice an idea and then it doesn't really get picked up. And then a couple beats later in this meeting, someone else says what was essentially the same thing. And that's when everybody is like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, especially if it's a man. This actually happened to me with a fantastic collaborator, great guy to work with. We've been working together, developing a approach for a project. And one day he just casually presented my idea in a client meeting. And I was shocked. And I think he would actually be shocked to know that he presented my idea as his own. I don't think he did it consciously. I think he just did it, right? You know, these are all these, people call them microaggressions. That's the official word for them. But it's all of these subtle things that add up into reducing our visibility in our day-to-day life. And you know, I want you to look at this image of, you know, this all-male panel, and then imagine if there were 636 of those people, and, you know, maybe throw in a couple of women, you know, a fifth women, and you would have the AICP College of Fellows. So there's only 22% of planning fellows who are female, right? Which is just, you know, it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. And that's actually the genesis of this conversation, of this presentation, is a conversation that I had with Brianne Rothstein about the Women's Division's work to try to get more women into the College of Fellows so that there can be equal representation. Because part of how we know what's possible for us is what we see other people who are like us doing, right? That's part of how we figure out who we want to aspire to be. And it helps us, part of how we get over imposter syndrome or fear that we're not qualified is looking and seeing that there are people like us who are already doing that. And so this is something that we need to really shift in this field. And my field of landscape architecture has challenges, architecture has challenges. We're all struggling here, but it's something that our fields need to take responsibility for, and also we need to step up as well. Fellowship, on one hand, is just this honorary thing, right? It's a title, but on the other hand, it's also a platform for your mission and for the ideas that you stand for. And your mission needs you. Your mission needs you because you know, I want to start with I want to tell a story of a student of mine that I think will just bring this to stark relief, put this into stark relief. So I had a coaching student who came to me. She'd been you know, working in the planning field for many years and had been in a job for about 10 years. And she was running great programs. She was a little bit of an entrepreneur in her organization. She was bringing a value system that wasn't present in the agency that she was in. And she had this feeling that something was missing, and she knew that she was capable of more, but she wasn't quite sure what that was. So when we went deep, we discovered that she had this persistent habit of keeping herself invisible. She didn't feel like an expert. There were a lot of people who were more traditionally technical experts around her. And so she was constantly convening other experts to share their advice and kind of hiding in the background. She would be the silent, secret facilitator and instigator who would hide in the background. She didn't like being the center of attention. So as a result, she would make these great programs happen, but those programs kind of stayed in their little silo and didn't grow, and their impact wasn't growing. It wasn't, her approach to how to shift the way her agency worked wasn't really spreading. And it wasn't spreading within her organization, and it wasn't spreading outside, right? The great work she was doing wasn't serving as a precedent for what could be done. So we realized that, you know, she needed to be willing to put herself out there so that she could be a platform for her mission. She needed to be the person that people could associate with her ideas so that her ideas could actually get out there and make a difference. A number of women I work with, and maybe you, right, you know, raise your hand. I won't be able to see you, but raise your hand, or just, you know, yep, if you identify with it. A number of women I work with feel this way, right? There's this, I have a theory that women who work in, especially women who work in sustainability, I've seen this come up a lot, and also women who do a lot of community engaged work, don't want it to be about them. They want it to be about the work. And so they sometimes, you know, want to pull themselves away from the center, but without a champion, oftentimes what you're trying to achieve doesn't get noticed and doesn't happen. And just to show But there is another way. I just want to share briefly. One of the people I look up to is Angela Glover Blackwell, who founded PolicyLink. And Angela Glover Blackwell does an incredible job at holding her power, but then using it to advocate for the kind of change she's trying to make. I was at the PolicyLink Equity Summit a few years ago, and it was one of the most moving, memorable, incredible conference experiences I've ever had. You know, like I'm waiting. They do it every 2 years, and I'm waiting to find out when the next one is, because it's like, I got to be there. She just held her power on the stage. She brought people into her mission. She wasn't hiding. She used her power to bring people into what she and her organization stands for. And it was a very, very interesting moment in the organization, because this was actually her announcement that she was stepping out of her leadership role and becoming a founder in residence and handing over the leadership role to someone who PolicyLink had been preparing to take over for her. And her personal strength and her ability to hold her power was able to extend to him and to convey her full confidence that he would lead the organization in the next chapter incredibly well. So you can't do these kinds of things, right? You can't put out a mission and get hundreds, if not thousands of people on board, make policy change, make change, and then hand it on to someone else so that it outlasts you if you're hiding. This is why visibility is so, so important. So a few of the top mistakes that I see people making, and especially women making, when it comes to their own visibility. So the first is to not have a goal, to not know why you're doing it. Here's some example goals. I want to be known for integrating the arts into my work so I can get staffed on projects that include a heavy arts component, or attract clients with those projects to me, or shift the way our agency works with artists so that they're not just, an add-on at the end, but they're an integral part of the process, right? Having a goal for why visibility matters to you. Secondly, waiting to get started. The other side of the coin to not having a goal is waiting to have it all figured out, to know exactly what you want to do with like a 45-page bullet-pointed personal brand before you actually go out there and take a step. So what a lot of people get wrong, and especially if you're a perfectionist or if you feel overly busy, what you might be getting wrong is that you usually have to take a first step in order to figure it out, right? A marketing expert who's one of my coaches says that some things reveal themselves with time. And yes, you'd love to have the perfect brand and the perfect this and the perfect that, but a brand is also, and a reputation and a profile is part of what you build by doing it, and it iterates over time. So originally, when I started working for myself and founded the design consultancy, I thought I wanted to do landscape architecture for organizations that wanted to achieve health outcomes. I was really interested in how design could make social change and could actually achieve outcomes that could be measured. And what I found, so I got out there, I started talking about what I wanted to do, and kind of acting as if this was the business. I very quickly realized that it wasn't really health outcomes that I was interested in. That was a very convenient answer, but I actually was much more interested in economic empowerment and equity issues. But by then, I had been blogging, I had been presenting, I had been getting out there, and all I had to do was to switch the subject, but I had developed my methodology. So, taking the first step, even if it's not quite right, some preliminary sense of the goal, taking the first step can actually help you get to the right goal. It took having the not quite right goal for me, that health outcomes goal, to get to the right goal for me. Another issue, another pitfall I see women in particular, but men as well, also people of all genders fall into, is having too many tactics for visibility. So especially if you're a business owner, or, if someone's told you, oh, you got to get out there, you're like, okay, got to get out there. If you feel tired and if you feel like you're hustling, you may have too many tactics. It's like a social media there, and I've got to go to a networking event there, and I got to do this, and I got to do that. And, and you feel like you're just not getting traction. So the world is big, But the world is also made up of these micro communities, professional organizations, people who are working on local foods or, co-working spaces or biotechnology and how that's going to change our urban fabric. And what you need is repeated exposure in specific communities to get noticed. So, when you don't have a targeted approach, whether that's the tactic or that goal, nothing sticks, and you just kind of pass through these worlds, and that you're everywhere doesn't slowly build up over time. Now, the last thing I see, and this is particularly for women, the last mistake I see women make is giving away their own power. So women are often great organizers. They're great at working behind the scenes. And I see women oftentimes avoid roles, or I see women take on roles that should increase their visibility and then not take advantage of that. So they don't use the advantage of the board position that they're on, or the fact that they're organizing or convening a summit to highlight their own leadership. I think sometimes it's because they think, oh, that would be self-promotional, that would be self-serving, but oftentimes you can do both, right? Think of Angela Glover Blackwell, right? You don't have to leave yourself out in order to pursue the mission. So this is actually a real story of a woman who I coached. They were the communications chair of the professional organization that they were on, but she spent all of her time working on infrastructure projects, highlighting the organization, highlighting other organizations, and no one even ever knew that she was behind all the incredible changes that happened that year because she rolled up her sleeves and did the hard work. So if you're spending all your time highlighting others' projects and having responsibility without recognition, then it might be that you need to kind of shift that a little bit and give yourself permission to do both. So what that might look like is, instead of being the one who's coordinating an event behind the scenes and, having a volunteer be willing to welcome everyone, doing the tech and setting up the PowerPoint or whatever it is, you're someone who actually sets the tone for the event before you hand it over to someone else. Because when you do the first thing, you actually make yourself look like a lackey, right? Like a get it done girl, versus someone who actually made it happen, who architected it, and who put vision to reality. Women are oftentimes trained to be nurturers, trained to be facilitators. A lot of this comes from the roles we expect women to play in our offices. There's actually research, the Harvard Business Review about 6 months ago put out an article that showed that women tend to volunteer themselves and be volunteered more by other people for promotionless tasks. So things like cleaning up the server, cleaning up after the meeting, organizing the office holiday party than men. And oftentimes women get stuck in these roles. I call it office housework. It's a form of emotional labor and mental load. And we can sometimes have trouble taking that center stage, and we leave credit to other people who are happy to take it. But then what happens is that all of that value that you generated, all of that sweat equity that you put into the things that you helped create, you don't get to benefit from that investment, and you leave that value on the table. Now, one last thing I want to say about giving up your own power, especially because we've been talking about fellowship and applications and applying for things. Hiding, one of the hiding strategies, hiding and saying, I'm not going to do this, I'm not ready. I'm not ready is a hiding strategy. And I'm not ready, sometimes you'll tell yourself, I'm too busy, this is really overwhelming, et cetera, but oftentimes that's really your inner critic saying, no, you're not qualified. Oh, this is overwhelming. Overwhelming is oftentimes is actually your inner critic hiding and keeping you from doing something that scares you. And the truth is that what got you here won't get you there. We raise girls to follow the rules and to play it safe and to wait for permission from authority figures. There's actually research from schools that show that girls get yelled at more by teachers when they talk out of turn. Boys are expected to take risks, make mistakes. And so, what got you here, maybe following the rules and doing the right thing and finding the authority figure and doing what they needed you to do, has gotten you here, but it won't get you there. So if you want to have an impact, you'll have to unlearn that. You'll have to learn how to jump before you feel ready. You'll have to learn how to leap before you look. And if that fellowship application isn't successful, well, now you've got something to iterate off of for next year, or whatever else it is that you want to put yourself out there for. So, all right, we're going to transition into strategies. Now that you know the context, what can you do in that? I'm going to share a couple of strategies that you can use to authentically raise your profile. There will be things that push you a little bit, but that won't make you feel like you're that, self-promotional car salesperson, because the truth is that we actually have a lower tolerance for women who appear self-promotional than for men. So these are almost my little hacked strategies for how you can build that visibility in a way that feels better and in a way that's also more effective. So the first is to get your wing woman or wing man or wing person. I actually, the wing woman strategy is a woven into everything of how I do build yourself. We even have an alumni coaching group called the Wing Crew, because we're winging each other together. And I actually just joined the Wing, which is a women's co-working space and social club in New York. So yeah, I got the wings on, and I hope you, if you're excited about this, you have my permission to put your wings on too. So women, as I mentioned, can't get away with bragging and talking about their accomplishments the same way that men can. We don't find it as socially acceptable. So a principal at an architecture firm who I'm close with, told me that sometimes she struggled to network and find new clients because she would be at networking events, she would meet people, she would ask them about their work, and then she would kind of wait for them to ask back, and sometimes they wouldn't. A lot of the time they just talk about themselves, and the end. Like, nice to meet you. And it would feel rude to say, well, here's what I do. And there is research that shows that we don't like women who seem too braggy or too self-promotional. And so I think she was picking up on something real. So one night, a friend and collaborator who ran a landscape architecture firm asked her if she could get her into this industry event. And she said, sure. So they went together, and it was a night and day difference. Because they worked the room. She could say, oh, you should meet this person. She just did this park. You probably drive past it on your way to work. And then her friend and collaborator would say, oh, you should meet XYZ. It sounds like you do multifamily work. She actually just did this project that I think you would be really, really interested in. And they could actually work off of each other and kind of be that wing person for each other. And it was helpful not just because they could start the conversation, but because it was social proof. It was more convincing to have someone else talk up her work than for her to talk it up herself. It was also more fun. So the wing woman strategy is something that can work even if the idea of going to a networking event makes you tired, or you don't do after hours events because you need to get a babysitter or whatever it is for you. You can get a couple of colleagues together and have everyone, maybe do a little breakfast meeting and have everyone talk about the opportunities that they're looking for. Maybe say, hey, I'm looking for a nonprofit board position in the arts. I'm trying to break into that. I'm looking for clients in XYZ. One of my coaching students is actually creating a leads group. So it's a group of allied professionals, her field, contractors, planners, people who she would collaborate with, people who she feels like she has values match with. And they get together, they update each other on their lives and their work, and then they share leads with each other. And those leads can be anything related to what you want to do in your career. It can even happen inside your company. So in the book Lean In, Sheryl Sandberg talks about how there were women at Merrill Lynch who were in mid-career and were kind of stuck there and felt like they couldn't get away with promoting their accomplishments, which we know is one of the key things that helps women move forward. So they would get together on a regular basis, have breakfast together, and then they would go out and they would talk about each other's achievements. And within a number of years, the majority of those women actually moved into senior leadership roles. So it's both a fun strategy and an incredibly effective strategy. Second strategy is to be the inviter. So I hear all the time from women that they see guys somehow ending up in these informal networks, right? Going out to lunch together and like, wait, how do I get invited? Why didn't they ask me? Or, playing sports on the weekend, or, like the golf, right? Golf. Should I learn how to play golf? So I have a friend who keeps kosher, and in grad school, she was in a bunch of clubs and groups, and they would often meet over meals. And so she would volunteer to organize the meal so that she could find a restaurant with food that she could eat. And everyone was very, very thankful for her for taking charge of making it happen. But it also meant that that meal happened on her own terms. So if you're waiting to be asked, you may wait there forever. But if you've decided that you're not going to wait to be asked, you can be the one to start to do the asking. So it means inviting a few key people at the office to lunch. A very significant proportion of my coaching students have a monthly goal to meet with senior leadership in their companies. And it's not a formal conversation. It's over a lunch, right? It's to find out, for them to get a sense of who you are and what you stand for, and for you to get a sense of what they're trying to achieve, so you can actually ally with them, build an allyship with them. It's a strategy that people use outside of their company. So when one woman wanted to move from a company in which she was hitting a glass ceiling, she just didn't see ways for women to advance. She started having lunch with women in her city, women she admired, and asking them how they got to where they were. And the connections and the insight she gained from that helped her figure out what her next move was, and actually helped create the network that helped facilitate that next move. So you just want to make sure that it feels casual, right? And not like an interview, because that's how people make connections. One of the issues that women in particular, that pitfalls women can experience, is that when we're nervous, we can get overly formal, and overly formal doesn't create that relationship, and actually makes us look small. So one of my coaching students who had this senior leadership assignment, one of the things we even practiced in our coaching session was, Jared, how was your summer? We would practice over and over how to actually feel like she was his peer and to be casual versus, I've come with an entire memo of all the things I want to ask you about career advancement, right? Being casual helps say, I belong in this room with you. You may have power over me, you may have more experience than me, you may have something I want, like a promotion or an opportunity, but you and I can both learn from each other. You can do it interpersonally, you can also scale it up. Let's say that you're a parent, you can organize, instead of golf, maybe a Sunday afternoon, out for parents at the office to bring their kids and do something fun with their kids. I used this strategy a couple years ago on research I did, this research on social impact design firms. And, it was a self-initiated project. At the time, I didn't have very many fancy things in my bio, didn't have, a public profile pretty much at all. So we asked people if we could interview them, and not everyone said yes, but many of them did. And we interviewed people, and now some of those people are my contacts, supporters, collaborators. They send me clients. We work together on things. I was the inviter, and actually was able to build an incredible professional network that I love. Okay, and the third strategy is to curate the work of yourself and others together. Right? This is an antidote to that hiding. So I just got an email from a local web design company that I love, and it was great because it included what they're working on. And they're working with some incredible clients, and the fact that I know that they've worked for MIT and Boston, City of Boston, and all these great things. It's like, now I know, wow, they're a big deal. Great clients are working with them. So it helps me keep them top of mind to recommend them to other great clients. Has what they're working on, what they're writing, but it also includes what they admire, projects they admire, and what they're reading. And this email was so effective because straight self-promotion isn't as believable as we talked about. Right? If we think something is just a promotion, it's so much more suspect to us. And it turns out that even social media companies know this and build it into their algorithm. So let's say that let's say you've got a side hustle as a ceramicist, and you're sharing your work on Pinterest. So Pinterest is much more likely to share your ceramics if you, in their search algorithm, if you're also including links to other people's work, to other articles you like, to things that are not just from your site, right? Because they recognize that content is richer, better, and more believable and credible when it's not just straight self-promotional. I was more likely to read this email to find out the latest in web design, and then to also find out that this great company is also even greater than I thought it was. The strategy works for companies, but it also works for individuals. So I have a friend who is an artist who took on the strategy of sending out periodic email blasts, and those email blasts are so much more interesting. And I found out, she's got a joint show, one of the highest profile shows that she's ever had, through this email. Okay, so 3 strategies, right? 3 strategies, all very different ways of being visible than just like get on social media or get on a panel. All of those things can be combined with those more specific tactical things, but they're really about a way of being powerfully you and then also connected to others. So what I want you to do, because what can happen sometimes in these webinars is there's a lot of information and you're like, that's a good idea. I could do that. I like that. And you're sitting there and maybe, your email's open or whatever it is for you. You walk away with a lot of insight, but you don't walk away with a commitment to action. And in order for this hour to be worth your time, I really want you to commit to action. So I want you to actually just take a minute. I'm actually even going to be silent for a minute. And I want you to just think for a minute. Do you have a goal? Is there a goal? Is there a goal for career advancement? Is there a goal for something you want to be known for and attract opportunities? Any goal is okay. We have to start with something. So think for a minute about what your goal might be and just write it down for yourself. Okay. It's probably not perfect. And if you're like, I don't know if this is right, that might be your inner critic, but that's okay. Then choose one strategy that you learned here today. So whether it's the wing woman effect, whether it's being the inviter, or whether it's curating others, choose one strategy that you would like to use consistently in order to get yourself in front of the people who matter to you, right? To change the minds of the people who have influence. So, and I'll give you just another minute and a second to put your stake in the ground on one of these choices. But let's say that you want to move into a more senior role, right? Well, the people who have influence are going to be the people who promote you, and the people who influence the people who promote you. So, can you use the invitation strategy to meet with people who matter and to get to know them? Can you build up your network with people? Let's say that you want, one of the things about growing into leadership is also bringing work into your company. Can you meet with some key influencers and potential clients outside and start to build your relationship with them? Let's say that you're trying to make your goal is to integrate arts and culture into your planning agency. Well, can you use the curate yourself and others kick off, maybe start sending an email, or maybe, see if you can host a little lunch and learn series and bring people in conversation with senior leadership to talk about arts and creative and planning and creative placemaking, right? These are just some shoot from the hip ideas for me. But it's taking one strategy and using it to achieve your goal. So I'm going to give you just another 30 seconds or so to say, here's what I'm going to do. I don't have to know all the details yet, but I'm putting my stake in the ground. Write it down. That's out of our head. Okay. So I don't know exactly what brought you here. I don't know what that burning thing that you're trying to shift that you know that visibility
Hey
would
Maya,
help you?
really quick, I just
Yeah.
want to interrupt you. Can you,
Yes.
all of a sudden your sound is getting really muffled. I don't know if
Oh.
like your cord is partially out or
Oh. Okay. How is that?
it's
Is that
still
better?
about this. It's, keep talking. I'll let you know.
It sounds
Okay.
like
How's how's
is
that?
happening like that when you move. When the
Yeah.
microphone moves, hits your chin, that might be where the issue is. Maybe if you could hold the
Oh.
microphone piece.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I will do that. I will do that. Thanks for letting me know.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Perfect. Thank you, Maya.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So hopefully you had a little bit more time to put your stake in the ground on something. So yeah, I don't know what brought you here today. I don't know if there's one thing that you just thought, okay, visibility is key, or there's something you're trying to achieve and you're feeling stuck, or you've been doing that hustling networking and it's just not working. But what I do know is that oftentimes we get stuck because we haven't made a clear commitment to consistent action, right? We haven't said, okay, here's the one thing that I'm going to do, and here's how I'm going to do it. And hesitancy sometimes is just a mask for fear. Indecision is sometimes a mask for fear. And the antidote is actually taking the first step. Whether that first step is a clear decision about what you're going to do, or a step is, sending that email and inviting people to your first breakfast session, even if you haven't figured it all out. We can get lost in all of the possibilities, which is why I really, really urge you to pursue one. And one thing that I do want to offer you is this: what I'm sharing today resonates with you. If you're feeling like, yes, this is what I need, I do have an additional resource, which is a creative and collaborative profile building cheat sheet. It works off of these 3 strategies for getting visible, but it's actually a brainstorming tactic. It can take you, what I suggest is it's got 3 questions, and I suggest set your timer for 5 minutes on each question, because your inner critic will sometimes say, oh, I really need to sit down and clear the schedule and drink my matcha and, play Enya in order to figure this out. And sometimes the answers are actually in you. You just need to sit down and do the brain dump. So this worksheet will help you develop a clear strategy for yourself using some of these 3 strategies to actually have a profile building tactic and approach that then you can use. So if you want that, you can go to buildyourselfworkshop.com/APA women. I do want to share that you will be subscribed to my email list, and you can feel free to stay on that email list, or if it's not right for you, you can unsubscribe at any point. I also want to say that this worksheet will help you if someone nominated you for a fellowship, or if you're thinking about it. If you print out this cheat sheet and 15 minutes on it, it will give you the raw ingredients that you can start your fellowship application on, right? It'll give you a sense of the kinds of things preliminarily that you want to be known for. And even if you decide to put it away until 2 years from now, when the next application period is, it'll start that conversation, right? It'll start the wheels turning, so that inner critic, which hates action, is moved to the side, is sidestepped. So yeah, buildyourselfworkshop.com/APA women. We're going to open it up for questions in just a minute, but I just want to say thank you for having me here. It's so exciting for me to get to. Actually, a number of my clients are planners, and I love what the Women's Vision is doing. I want to see 50-50 in the College of Fellows, and I want to see all of the missions that you are trying to achieve happen. I want to see you get that firepower. You're welcome to email me at maya@buildyourselfworkshop.com. I'd love to hear from you. Anything resonated, even anything that's on your mind. And if you want to get on my email list, you can text Build Yourself to 444-999, and I write about women. I write about office housework. I write about the ways in which women can set clear visions and achieve them, and avoid some of the office housework and the extra stuff that we ask women to do that isn't really their job. And I will say that I do have a program that will help you get clear on what you want to stand for. It'll help you choose a visibility strategy and craft it very specifically, and then actually support you in taking consistent action on it. That's called Build Your Visibility. And so if you're interested in it, get on the email list and you can find out more.
Great, thank you. We
right.
did just get a few people message in that the link is not working. So
So here's a backup plan. Email Maya at buildyourselfworkshop.com and say, and just put cheat sheet in the subject line, and we will get that to you.
Thank you. Okay, so folks, if you have questions, go ahead and type those in. And we'll just kind of go into some of these questions here. So the first one is, what's the value of building your profile? Not all of us aspire to be the everywhere person.
Yeah, I love this question. So I don't think you have to want to be the everywhere person to build your profile. I think that the things that we want to achieve, the changes we want to make, often require us to be visible, often require us to shift things and to get people to listen to us, to be credible. I think maybe the key word that I haven't talked about as much today is credibility, to be credible so that we can achieve the things that we want. So one of the strategies that I teach in Build Your Visibility is internal networking. It's about, there's a lot of unwritten rules about how to navigate our organizations, not just to achieve title change, but to achieve the kinds of opportunities we want, the staff that we want, the permission to do things that are different, right? To, hey, can we try this thing we've never tried before? And in order to have the credibility to do those things, oftentimes we need to be visible. People need to know what we stand for and know what we have been able to achieve in the past. So I see visibility. Visibility can show up in a lot of different ways depending on who you are uniquely. I am not that big of a social media fan, and for a long time I thought there was something wrong with me, that I didn't want to be, giving insights in 140 characters or less. But then I realized it just wasn't the right way for me to connect. So I've been taking an Instagram hiatus, and people find out and they're like, oh, you have to be on Instagram. And I'm like, nope, that's not right for me. So there are different ways to be visible that don't require I'm the head of the social committee, but that asset is still incredibly powerful.
There are a few questions regarding your presence on social media, or even LinkedIn and Twitter, I think, are the two big ones right now. But what do you do if all your colleagues, if everyone else, if that's how they're communicating, if that's how they're spreading the word about themselves? How can you realistically say, well, it's not for me, when that's just the world in which their circles revolve around? What do you do?
Yeah, this is a great question. So you absolutely can choose it's not for me, but you want to choose what is for you, right? You don't just want to poo-poo something that doesn't work. You want to replace it with something that does work. And the truth is, a lot of people don't use social media particularly well. The people who use social media well aren't just broadcasting, I did this and I did that and I'm so great and I did that. They're actually starting conversations with people, and not just building a profile, but actually building a trust factor in the way that they show up. They're present. So you can do that through a number of other strategies if being a constant scroller isn't for you. One of the reasons why I actually love LinkedIn, but one of the reasons why I don't love Twitter is it kind of gives me like an ADD feeling. I feel like, I'm the kind of person who wants to actually be where I am and fully be present. So let me talk about a couple of the other strategies, and all of them are baked into these, I guess I should say tactics, right? When I share our strategies and a couple of other tactics that you can use. So I have a habit of having an online, a virtual coffee date with someone who I admire once a month. And so I reach out to someone and I ask them if they'd like to, hop on hop on Skype or Zoom for 45-minute coffee date. I'll share with them what I do. I want to hear about what you do. I'm really interested in XYZ. Bring your coffee, because even if we can't, order at the counter, we can drink and get to know each other. And I've been doing this for over a year, and I've met some amazing people who have sent me some incredible opportunities. One person, we're going to be collaborating together on a product, and I never had to get on social media to do that. That was the strategy that worked for me. Another strategy is strategic internal and external networking. I am a huge fan of that strategic networking within your organization. And it doesn't just mean networking with people who are a step up. It also means building allies in other parts of the organization so that you can support their efforts and they support yours. So I think that's an incredible strategy. I love writing and thought leadership and speaking. I love to speak. This webinar is a visibility strategy. You may love that as well. You may love to give presentations or be on panels, and you don't just have to wait to be picked. So one of my coaching students developed a short list of places that she'd love to speak, and she either submits conference proposals or reaches out to organizers and says, hey, I just love to introduce myself. I'm a this, and my specialty is XYZ. If you're ever looking for a panelist on that, or if you're ever looking at the workshop on how we can increase XYZ, just wanted to say hello so you know who I am. And you don't have to wait to be picked. I love writing. It works for me, and I think one of the amazing things about writing is it helps you develop your point of view. So I set a goal for myself to write a blog post bi-weekly when I was first starting that health outcomes design firm, and it was how I figured out my methodology and then how I figured out I needed to pivot. So you don't have to. It doesn't have to be, 3-page essay. Sometimes even saying I'm gonna write 500 words twice a week, and then when I have something good, I'm gonna send it off to our communications person and make it a blog post or build on it. It can just be as simple as that. But part of what I think you might be reading in between the lines is that the consistency piece is a core element. So it's a lot easier to say, I will pitch one talk a month than to say, I should pitch conferences. And so this is baked into, if you work with me or my program, but you can do this for yourself. My advice is to say, here's the strategy, here's the cadence with which I'm going to do it. So then you can just set it and forget it and just show up for it.
Thanks. Next question. Establishing wing people is really appealing. Could you expand on, and how to boost other people while doing self-promotion? What are some small scale and big scale tactics?
Yes. Okay. This is one of my favorite strategies. So, and actually what I'll share is I have a guide to how to start your own virtual circle, which is basically a wing crew. So if you can email me, Maya@buildyourselfworkshop.com, and just put wing crew guide in the subject line, and we'll make sure that it gets to you. Okay. So the first thing to do is to figure out what format you want it to be. And I'll throw a couple out there. A bi-monthly breakfast leads group is one. A one-time group in which people support each other. So there's a woman who I know who is a speaker, and she's going to convene a group of people who, one of the interesting things about speakers is that they're not quite as competitive, because if you have a conference one year, they need a new speaker the next year, right? It's not like a career and business strategist where usually you only need one. So she's going to convene a group based on people who she trusts and people who those people trust to share recommendations of conferences and introductions. Another thing you can do, I think a panel is actually a wing woman moment. So organizing a panel for a conference. I am, depending on what you're trying to achieve, sometimes it's not just going to the APA conference, but let's say you're trying to influence economic development, proposing a panel with key wing crew people at the key events where the people who you want to influence will be there. I even think hosting a dinner party is a wing woman strategy. What I recommend is that you want to make sure that the people who are in the room or in the virtual room are complementary versus just competitive. So if you're going to have a leads group, have a planner and an engineer and a contractor and an architect, right? You don't want to be going after the same opportunities or else things can get competitive. But if you hear of a project and you know that they need a partnership, or you know that it's going to be the kind of project where there's a master plan and then there's a lot of stuff to build and construct, that's the perfect thing for a wing crew. I hope that's helpful. And if there's any kind of detailed things, that tactical advice that you're looking for that I haven't shared, then feel free to just submit another question.
Great, thank you. This should not be foreign to you with all of your moving around. Can you give some insights on how to use these strategies when you've just moved and don't know the other professionals in your area? Planning is a really small local community and can be really hard to break in if you move to a different state or region.
Yes. Well, I just moved to New York, and New York is a hard city to crack. So if you're in that situation, I feel you. I really feel you. So the best piece of advice I want to give two pieces of advice, but the best piece of advice I can give is take charge. So volunteer for something. So there are so many groups that are looking for people to make things happen, to implement the work. And the great thing about a professional association is they've got committees and structures and events that need to be planned. And so rather than go to your first event and just see who can I meet here, what you want to do is you want to go and introduce yourself to the organizer and just say, hey, I just moved here. I'd love to get involved. Maybe, drop a thing or two that you were involved with in the past. I used to do this. Would love to get involved here. What can I do? And they will give you a job. And when you have a job, you will feel more integrated, and other people will treat you like you belong. And it's a way, when you work with people, you get to interact with them. And for sometimes what women will do is they'll feel like they have to take the entire job. Like you'll hesitate because you say, I'm like raising a family and taking care of aging parents. I don't have time for a volunteer position. You get to set the tone of that volunteer position. That woman who I mentioned earlier, who was the communications chair, it wasn't her job to redesign the entire website. That she didn't have to say yes to that. So you get to say yes to exactly what works for you. And so if you're nervous that you can't handle it all, you get to choose what you want to handle. Doing that will help you feel like you belong and will get you hooked in very quickly. I know that a lot of organizations are looking to transition leadership. Maybe the co-chairs have been in their co-chairship for a long time, and they're looking to, bring people on to groom them into the next stage. You can be that person. And I actually know a sustainability group here in New York that's really looking for someone to help do some planning. So if you're sitting there, you're in New York, you're in sustainability, this might be you. Feel free to email me about it. Second piece of advice is that you want to make one-on-one connections. It's easier sometimes to make one-on-one connections. So I would go look for some people who you think are interesting or you like what they're doing, and send them a 3-sentence email. That first email will take you a long time to write because you'll be overthinking it. And in my program, we actually have these email templates like Mad Libs so that you don't spend 47 minutes writing one email, but write them an email and just say, hey, I just moved to town. I think you're interesting because of XYZ. Would love to meet and chat more about our work over breakfast or coffee. Let me know if you're interested. And some people will say no. Some people will actually never say no. They'll just never respond. I suggest one follow-up. But if you pick 8 people who you think are interesting and send 8 emails, I would be flabbergasted if you didn't have 2 breakfasts that came out of it. And when you have those one-on-one connections, then those are people you can be the inviter to, right? So you say, oh, I'm going to this APA event. I think you would really like it. Or I'm going to see this art show. You mentioned XYZ. Or you go to an event and you already, if you've met 4 or 5 people, you now know 4 or 5 people in the room. And so it's visibility, building visibility. Visibility you can't spend 3 weeks on it and be like, great, I invited people, I was a leading person. Visibility is kind of like a bank. You fill that bank with little actions over time. And when you do that, it actually starts to accumulate just like an investment account. And then that's when you start being the person who gets invited to things, or, not just invited to the panel, but invited to, Thanksgiving dinner or a Halloween party or whatever it is that you want to be invited to.
Great, thank you. This is an interesting take. Any advice on dealing with the downside of visibility, where one's involvement in, for example, a high-profile project gets one in the doghouse, so to speak, when things blow up due to other people's actions or lack of actions? What do we do? How do we deal?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. This is a question I am so excited to answer. So women in particular, I think it's because of how we are socialized, really struggle with feeling like we need to be perfect, appear perfect, not make mistakes. I've seen this happen in my coaching sessions so much recently. People who feel like they need to be great detail people. And I think part of why we feel like we need to be great, and I'm going to get to the question of, I haven't forgotten your question around high profile projects, but I think we are expected to manage the home housework and the office housework. We're expected to be very, very detail oriented. And if we aren't at inbox 0 or someone hasn't, gotten a response, we are bad people. And I think that it's socialization, it's terrible, and it keeps us from playing bigger. You can't be nice to everyone all the time. You can't, make sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed if you're doing high level work. I think it's one of the biggest issues holding women back from their full potential. I think that's one thing. And we're sometimes so afraid of getting things wrong or the mistakes that inevitably will happen that we don't jump to those stretch opportunities that really, will be challenging. But the mistakes will happen. So first of all, one of the ways to get comfortable with putting yourself in that exposed position is to start to watch how other people deal with mistakes that happen. I would recommend, I would say pick out a couple of men and a couple of women. And if no one comes to mind right now, write on a post-it, stick it on your computer, mistakes. And over the next couple of weeks, watch high-profile people of all genders, and when mistakes happen, how do they deal with it, and take notes for yourself. Because what matters is less that the mistake happens and oftentimes how we deal with it. And you'll get a sense both of how you might deal with it, but also it will become a little bit more normalized versus everything will fall apart if I make a mistake and everyone's looking at me. Secondly, I want to share with you a principle that really, really helped. So the higher profile things we do and the more important things we do, the more lovers we will attract and the more haters we will attract. When you stand for something, it means that there's something for someone else to disagree with. So a lot of the time we play it safe. We'll kind of make these wishy-washy statements. And then, excuse me, or, on the one hand, on the other hand, I'm kind of, excuse me, get stuck in indecision. But when we stand for something, not everyone's gonna go for it, right? A lot of the women I work with are entrepreneurial. They're trying to create culture change in their organizations, and it scares people. It pisses people off. Some people are like, I don't want to do that vulnerability thing. No. I don't want to fill out a worksheet. What got me here got me here. I've been doing the same thing for 30 years. Don't tell me to do things differently. And so I want you to flip the script and start to see criticism not as a sign that you're doing something wrong, but maybe as a sign that you're doing something right.
Great, thank you. Next question. Any advice you would like to give the male planners on the line so that they can be better allies for their female coworkers and employees?
Yes. Okay. So I do have a piece that I on Medium, and if you email me and put allies in the subject line, I would be happy to send it to you. It's 9 ways design leaders can support women. And it goes through 9 micro actions. So rather than microaggressions, right, ways we put down women, there are 9 things you can proactively do to support women. But I would say that men are great wing people. Men can be great wing people. So if you're the one who's being invited to lunch, invite a woman. If you are, you recommend women for panels and positions. I have a mentor who, he has a policy of not, this is actually a way that you can take it up to the next level. He has a policy of not sitting on panels that don't include either women or people of color. He's a white man, and he uses his power to say, this isn't right, and I don't want this panel to be on. Congratulations, you have an all-male panel. So there are ways that you can proactively stand for those values. Let me think about one in particular that's on my list of 9 that I think is really, really important is women internalize bias and imposter syndrome and don't feel ready even when they sometimes are ready or we think that they're ready. And so part of the issue is not just bias on behalf of people who are reviewing fellowship applications in APA, it's also internalized bias of women who are nominated and who are saying, oh, I'm not ready, or women who are not self-nominating if that's a possibility, or initiating a nomination process. So what I recommend is to ask women and to not just ask once, to actually repeatedly ask, because part of how we get a sense of what could be possible for us is that someone believes in us and then continues to show up and believe in us. I met a woman who organized the Ohio field office for Obama's campaign, and she said that she regularly had men who she would meet saying, oh, I would love for you to be my campaign organizer. I think I'd be a great politician. And women, I think the statistics she shared with me, qualified women had to be asked between 9 and 16 times to run for office. So what you can do is turn that into your habit, your action. So don't just ask, hey, I think you should apply for this once. And don't be, insistent about it. But, hey, I think you'd be great for this. What do you think? Oh, not ready? Okay, well, I think you would be fantastic. You're not going to disappoint me if you don't apply. But, I'm going to keep it in mind because I think you're doing incredible work on XYZ. And then maybe you come back 3 months later and you bring it up casually. Have you done XYZ, right? This is also the case with promotions or high profile opportunities. And you might even say, hey, I witnessed this presentation and she shared with me that qualified women have to be asked between 9 and 16 times. It's okay to be scared or to feel like you don't know how to do it. But a lot of the important things we learn in life, we learn through not knowing how to do them in the first place. And I will have your back.
Wonderful. We'll take one more question and then kind of wrap up. Are you familiar with the lean out movement?
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about it? And then the person asking the question, she also says the Sandberg model has had some negative impacts and added pressure for a lot of women. So if you could maybe just kind of go over both of these a little bit and your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I love this question. So I am a fan of both lean in and lean out at the same time, which I guess, if you try to visualize that, you might fall over. But my approach, and this is I have a coaching program for mid-career women that is based on this approach, is that we have to get clear on what it is that we want, right? There's a lot of messages out there that say, you should aspire to this, you should do that. And what we have to get clear on is, what contribution do we want to make? How do we want to live our lives? And then we have to oftentimes gut test whether or not that's ambitious enough, because we know that women are much more likely than men to discount their abilities and what they think is possible for themselves. So I call it supersizing what you want for yourself, and we take it through an exercise to say, well, here's what I think I want. Could I supersize it? And then you ultimately choose what's right for you. And what's right for you usually may include, like I said, title change, or the things that are external, look like external success, but they're always based on who you uniquely are, the contributions you want to make, what makes you feel creatively alive, what makes you feel like you're growing, what kind of way you like to work. Are you collaboratively oriented or not? And it's highly, highly idiosyncratic, because it's your answer. It's not someone else's answer. And what we also do is I don't believe in just picking an ambitious goal and just running at it flat out and, keeping everything the same. We also have to talk about smarter, not harder strategies, and what we're going to say no to in order to say yes to what we want, what we ultimately want to achieve. And so that's why, and I've talked about it a couple of times, I am a big crusader to get women to opt out of office housework, right? Doing the work that keeps cultures and communities alive. It's not that you have to opt out of them, but I want you to feel like it's an active choice versus no one else is stepping up, so you have to step up to do it. Also strategies like I work a lot with women on delegation, and the kind of delegation that really empowers other people to make mistakes and then learn from them and do their best, versus feeling like you have to control everything. So I think you can actually lean out and lean in at the same time. I know there was a lot of criticism to, do Sheryl Sandberg strategies, say that 3 times fast, only work if you are in a position of privilege. And I think that some of them work when you're in a position of privilege, but some of them also work when you're not. So I guess I'm a little bit ideology agnostic. I believe in taking what works from multiple people's models and then turning them into the model that works for you.
Wonderful. Okay, I think we're going to wrap up. I think I've kind of railed enough questions at you in the last half hour. You've done great. So I think at this point, we're going to bring Caitlin back on the line to do a little wrap up for us.
Yes, thank you everybody for participating today and asking. You all asked very amazing questions, and Maya, you were excellent with giving all of your advice and information to the group here today. So thank you for your time on this. Just some quick housekeeping things. Save the date, October 23rd. The Women in Planning Division is partnering with APA Career Services Center to bring on a second part of this career advancement series, where we'll be talking about the gender wage gap in planning and successful strategies for women to negotiate salary from a position of strength. So we're really looking forward to that, and that'll be coming up in about a month or so. And on the very next slide is our contact information. The Women in Planning Division is very happy to have you all on board and have you all plugged into what we do. You can take a look at our brand new website. It's women.planning.org, and you can follow us on there and check out all of our upcoming events. My contact information is there, as well as the chair's, Corinne. So if you have any questions or you'd like to stay plugged into us, just reach out. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you all so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Yeah. This was great. Thanks. And again, everyone, just as a reminder, we are recording this session and it will be available up on our YouTube channel. Just search Planning Webcast on YouTube. And we'll also have a PDF of the session available here up on our webcast webpage. So thanks everyone for joining us this week, and we will talk next time. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.